Hi everyone, and welcome to the Spencer Lodge podcast in partnership with Najahi Events, an awesome event company here in the UAE. Now, if you want to know how to make money in the catering, food, restaurant and retail food experience industry, or maybe it's not that at all, maybe it's the tech industry, then listen up for the next guy I'm about to podcast. Cue the music. So Ian, first of all, thank you so much for taking the time. Busy CEO, been here a long time, but trying to get a guy as kind of busy and successful as you into the studio has been a bit difficult.
Yeah, that was probably my scheduling, but yeah, good to be here finally.
So you and I met recently at another event where we were in your offices with Adrian Grenier. Yeah. And as people might not know who Adrian Grenier is, I didn't. I only know him as Vinny Chase out of Entourage, and I think you and I were probably more starstruck around him than anybody else.
It's my favorite. I mean, it sounds cliche, but it's honest to God my favorite show. I've watched it so many times, and you almost feel embarrassed to say it to him, but it was genuine, so it was a great show.
Absolutely. I was telling my kids that evening, oh yeah, I was Vinny Chase, and they're like, who? Who's that? So, and we were talking about sustainability on that day, okay? Adrian obviously working with the UN and the work that you're doing with not using plastic. But although we met that way, I was quite interested when I saw your business and I saw the kind of unconventional type of character that I found you to be.
That's very kind.
and I find that quite, I say that in a really positive way, because when I met you, I didn't realize you had a background of, KPMG and corporates and that kind of stuff. I just thought that you must have been this Harley Davidson riding renegade type entrepreneur that has kind of learnt from the school of hard knocks, but that's not the case, is it?
No, I was very much a corporate guy. Both my parents were teachers, so, academic was important. Spent a lot of time with KPMG, Arthur Andersen, but I always felt that, so I always classify myself as a later in life entrepreneur, and it's almost harder to do when you're older, but you're better equipped, to manage it. But it was it was a later in life opportunity, and spurred on with a little luck and a support of a loving wife that allowed me to take a chance and encouraged me to take a chance. So
does she have in writing on the wall above your bed, tolerance and endurance? Is that what goes on?
It's probably different things than that, but but yeah, it's definitely a lot of tolerance and a lot of endurance. The unsung heroes of entrepreneurs, I think, are your better halves who have to put up with the ups and downs that you go through, and
it's the obsessiveness of it
is
as well, isn't it?
It's pure obsessiveness. Yeah.
When you try and we don't talk about the wives very often, or the partners very often. Often it's kind of like focus on the business and what you've done, what you've achieved, and that kind of stuff. But the fact that you just brought it up means to me that maybe there is a huge amount that someone has to cope with when they cope with a genuine entrepreneur.
Yeah, and I think, my wife is probably the biggest unsung hero in everything that I've done, and the biggest support in everything that I've done. I really couldn't do it, or really wouldn't. To be honest, I wouldn't want to do it without her, and without my family's support. It wouldn't mean very much to me. It's not about money, or it's about doing it for our family and for the things that we do together. And but yeah, she puts up with a lot of. She's a sounding board. When you're an entrepreneur, there's not that many people that you can speak to honestly and completely bare naked honest, because there's certain things you have to portray as a business person, but your spouse is one of those people that you can have very honest conversations with, and so and I think that's probably the only person that that I can really have those conversations with. And then and they know you the best, they know how to manage you the best, and it's not necessarily fair to them because the burden falls on them, but it is the strength that creates I think an entrepreneur is their spouse.
I think I want to spend a bit more time talking about that in a minute. But before I do, can you, for the benefit of our audience, everybody knows Freedom Pizza here in Dubai. It's a brand that everyone knows. But Cross Brands owns a number of brands. So please tell us about your business. Okay, when it started, what it is, what it means, and how do you consume your life around it?
Sure. So we started our business in 2009. So I had actually sold my last company off with my two partners to Jones Lang LaSalle in end of 2009. 2006, so I had to stay with them for 3 years.
What business was it?
It was a real estate investment business, and that was a good time in Dubai. And we were all sort of, it was right place, right time, right people. In 2.5 years, we built up a very big business and a very, very robust economy. And we sold to Jones Lang LaSalle end of 2006. 3 years later, I had to stay with them for 3 years. Lehman Brothers recession hit. It's okay, guys. Can you now, start to let go all the people that we've been hiring? And it seemed like a good time to sort of part company. I didn't really want to do that, and it wasn't there wasn't a lot of growth or opportunity. My daughter was just born, and decided to sort of take some time off. And I think we were chatting earlier. That's when I took my suits off, and I think they're still gathering dust in my closet. But
there'll be a wedding and a funeral to attend at some stage.
I'm still not sure I'll put them on. Then I took about 6 months off. My daughter was born, spent a lot of time with her, and really enjoyed it. Got overly comfortable, and my wife at some point was like, you are going to go back to work, right? At some point, please go back to work, because I don't want you around the house. You're spending way too much time here. So I ended up, looking around, and I came across a company in the States called Naked Pizza. And that, was very interesting when I saw them being interviewed, the founders, on Bloomberg one night. And I was just about to go to sleep, sort of had the TV on in the background, eyes closed, and I heard one of the founders being interviewed during Entrepreneur Week in New Orleans, and I was sort of really intrigued by the things that they were saying about, their mission, to make healthier food available to everybody, their use of social media, and this was also after Hurricane Katrina, and so there was a lot of really interesting things, and it sounded like it made a lot of sense, and so I wrote to them the next day, they both of the partners wrote back to me within a few hours, and we were on a conference call, and they said, well, what do you guys want to do now? And they had one store at the time in New Orleans, and I said, they said, we can come see you. They said, but it'd be better if you came to see us. So I got on a plane the next day, and I flew to Houston, rented. I always wanted to go to New Orleans, and it sounded interesting, and my wife was supportive. Her parents were there, and we took a motorbike from Houston to New Orleans, and I spent a week with them, and got along, really, really well. Really appreciated what they're doing. Their mission became very important. It wasn't just talk; it was real, and it was their driving force. And the three of them were really interesting partners, great entrepreneurs. And so I took a chance on doing something with them, and that's how my pizza journey began. And then became an investor in the company and the first franchisee outside of their one store. Mm-hmm. And they had sold a bunch of other franchises, and they were sort of blowing up. But they were really amazing entrepreneurs. And so that's where I started, and I opened up Naked Pizza here. Did it for about 5 years, very successful. They were pushed out of their own company by investors, and there were some big investors that they had managed to attract, and the company kind of languished, and it was suffering everywhere in the U.S., and we were doing very well, and I became very independent because they weren't supporting us. And it reached a point where it got sold another time, and it reached a point where the franchisor was not. We did some egregious things, and we were forced to terminate the arrangement. And Freedom Pizza was born. So.
Okay, that's how it started.
Yeah.
And that was the first brand.
That was the first brand, and then we moved over to. And in that process, I was becoming stronger because I was forced to do everything that normally a franchisor would do. We had chefs, we were doing all of that, and it was kind of fun, and I kind of liked that. So their weakness became our strength to a large extent, and near the end, they were asking us for everything that they should have been providing, and so. But it made me think a little bit about and so when we rebranded to our own brand, which was Freedom Pizza, we already had this strong core team. We had some know-how, and we decided to grow that business. So we rebranded, reestablished the brand, then brought in a chef from Los Angeles. I purchased a company called Coco Yogo about 1.5 years ago. We were their biggest customer. It's an all-vegan company. They make great products. So we ended up buying them as we became their largest customer, and we see veganism as and plant-based foods as not just a trend, but it's a paradigm shift in eating globally. Then we opened another concept called Wildflower Poke and More. We've got 2 of those open now. We're working on a third with our chef from Los Angeles, and now we just purchased the salad jar. We closed about 6 weeks ago. We closed on the deal. We closed down the operation operation, and we're going to relaunch it in January on our own platform. And I also have another company in Hungary called Big Dwarf, which does all of our tech and our online. So I don't know if that answered your question. Or
yeah, it does.
You look like you were nodding off there.
No, I wanted to make sure you got that out. So you load me up with questions on the back of that. You talk about the fact that you're a tech company more than you are essentially a food retail business or a restaurant business. And for anybody that buys your pizzas or gets any of your food, just like I showed you earlier, the lady that bought your cake, your vegan cake shop, people would think you're in the food, you're in the restaurant business more so than being a tech company. So what makes you a tech company?
Everything we do is driven by tech, whether that's the way we work as a team, as in our corporate team and our team in general. But we've built all of our own online platforms, and I'm not a tech person by background, but I'm very easily frustrated, which makes me a great sort of test case, I think. So, and I got into tech. The real reason I got into tech is we used to flyer buildings. Okay, not very environmentally friendly, but at the time very effective, and we're probably a large part of the reason why it was stopped in most locations.
Oh, really? You used to do a lot of it?
We used to do a lot of it, and that's how
little A5 pieces of paper with your menu on there?
Yeah, it looked nice, and there was a lot of nice stuff on it, but yeah, we used to put out a lot of paper. And what occurred to me then, and it was very effective, but what occurred to me then was that this is not sustainable, it's not environmentally friendly, and it's not something that we're going to be allowed to do, nor should be allowed to do. And so I'm going to have to figure out another way to reach our customers. And we're in the delivery business, so most people don't even know where our stores are. Mm-hmm. We find them. So if I can't flyer them, and we don't do that, what digital became the next way to do that. And this was 6, 7, 8 years ago. And so I started looking for ways to create digital platforms. And I experimented with a couple in our business. What became very clear to me is that, and I also realized the things that I wanted our tech to be able to do. And tech is very disjointed. You have different platforms. They don't speak to each other. And for a business to function properly, and the tech companies that do what we want them to do, they're trying to please many masters because their job is to provide a tech platform for many companies. Mm-hmm. I had a very specific, and if I had asked them, I want to do this, can you make the system do this? I said, that's a great idea. We'll schedule it, for 3 years from now. And, and it's sort of all I'm doing is informing their system, and 3 years from now, it's not going to matter. We would have been well past that. So I realized very quickly that this was not the answer. Made some mistakes with different developers about how we could build some things, and then found some partners that I really liked, and we got along really well and very talented. And so I ended up forming a company with them in Budapest. That's where they're from. And they have very talented developers there, and we've got an amazing team of folks. So everything we do is based around that tech platform, the way we interact with our customers. And that tech platform is a living, breathing, 24-hour a day. It's a baby, and it's so, and that, that's what I realized early on. It's not just a platform. This is something that evolves with us every single day. We can react from customer feedback. From customer feedback to to implementation could be hours. Because and all our team does is works on our platform. So this is super critical to reach our customer, communicate with our customer, and create convenience for our customer. And the convenience is I believe is the early panacea of how people want food and beverage to be. The days of breakfast, lunch, and dinner are long gone. At home, and the days of going out for meals is long gone. On occasion. So it's people now want food everywhere all the time, and we want all that choice anywhere we are. And that's what I believe is the future of food and eating, and you can see that around the world. And technology allows us to bridge that gap.
With the advent of companies like Talabat and Deliveroo and the Zomato, that only cements what you're saying even further, doesn't it?
I think it's actually most industries are disrupted. Who's the most likely candidate to actually disrupt your own industry? It's somebody in the industry. Yeah. But industries are slow to the game, don't understand. So all these companies to me are the symptom of the problem. The problem is our industry didn't realize.
Well, it's a really good point you make there, because I find that fascinating when you take the real estate industry industry, and you go back to, I mean, we have a property finder in Beirut here, but if you go back to the UK with prime location and Zoopla and stuff, okay, why was that not the the brainchild of the guy that owned Knight Frank?
Yeah.
Why was that not the brainchild of the guy that owned Clarence?
And to them, it's the most foreign thing in the world, and they're the first to reject it.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. Maybe you're just too, engaged in, what you think your business is, and that's a danger, right? I mean, and even today, the food and beverage industry is still way behind in terms of even reacting to this phenomenon, because our whole industry is being disrupted, and it's the simple truth is this is what our customers want. This is what they've wanted for a long time, and we as an industry haven't reacted. And so,
you didn't even ask.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, no, it was a big surprise to people that it actually. I mean, when I first opened here, I was the first to offer online credit card payment in our industry, and everybody thought I was crazy. It actually took me 18 months to even be able to do it, because there weren't it was very difficult to set up for delivery and all these types of things, and everyone told me it wasn't going to work. Nobody's going to give you their credit card online. So I swear, I remember having these conversations, and I remember saying, well, where, I looked at a study and it said, where is credit card in the Middle East, most frequently? It was weird. It was online, like it was the Amazons and things like that at the time. So people were ordering because it was international, and it was cinemas. And I remember thinking, why cinemas here? It's because it was available. Right? Yeah. It was simple. And people are saying, no, it's only cinemas. And I said, it's at cinema. But why is it cinemas? It's only in cinemas because they offer it, and so people like it. So as soon as we went on, with credit card, we were at 20%. Now I think it's like 70 or 80% credit card rate. So the customer is ready and willing and able. They want convenience. They want it now. They want it in the right way. They want it to be safe and secure. But our industry is, and to this day, is still way behind the curve.
And if you imagine what's happened in that industry, in that food delivery industry over the course of the last 5 years, and then imagine where it will be in 10 years' time.
It's frightening because they're saying it's going to double globally. I think it's at 10 billion. It's more than 10. It's 10 billion in aggregator revenue alone around the world today, and they think it's going to double by 2025. So
is that just going to make us? I mean, is that going to make us more and more insular?
I don't think so.
Because for me, one of the best things about eating is the conversation, and when you have food delivered, you eliminate a lot of the conversation.
You eliminate everything, just you and your food,
and your phone,
and your phone.
And so, people using social media all the time, we notice that if you go into a restaurant nowadays, people are staring at their phones way more than ever, even couples on a romantic date. And then you take the fact that food can be delivered home rather than people going to the restaurant. Is it not? Are we not just creating a situation that's going to stop us communicating?
I don't think that's going to be the end result. I think I look at.
Well, what is the end result?
I think we're in a process, right? If you think about it, 5 years ago, delivery was generally difficult. Mostly pizza companies, if at all, poor, inconsistent. That was 5, 6, 7 years ago. Today, I think what's happened is we became, as consumers, drunk on convenience. Right, because people said, "Oh no, you can have anything you want at any time, right? And you can have it delivered to your door, and and you have all this choice now that you didn't have." So I think convenience trumped everything. Convenience was more important than quality, brand, and all those types of things, and experience. And I think that we're heading, and it's already happening, we're heading back to experience. And so technology is becoming commoditized. Once it's universally available and consumers expect it, then the emphasis of it goes away, in the sense that that's not what we're after. We're not just after convenience. We still, I think as humans, and this is my personal view, we still crave experience. We still crave interaction. We still crave, we want to be valued, and we're interested in, I think most people genuinely want to do business or prefer to do business with companies that they care about or that they think are, they can relate to. And I think all that's going to come back. And I think so technology is going to fade into the background, not because it's not important, but because it's universally available.
It's taken for granted.
Yeah, and I think we're starting to round that corner now towards convenience. And it's it's simple things like, why can't you, and if you think about it in retail, Apple stores do something very interesting. You interact with an individual with what is now like the Atari of, that's a very old reference.
We know that.
We know that, but I'm sorry about it.
If everybody out there listening, Atari was a brand that was around in the 70s and the 80s.
But it was, but they actually transact with you over this, phone-like device, right, in the store. There's no cashier, right? That to me, that's that's brilliant, but it's very basic, and every retailer should be doing it, but they're still not doing it. So the idea that your phone becomes the conduit for wherever you are and however you wish to transact, I think is the future. So if I walk into a restaurant, I don't know about you, but I hate the act of paying.
There's two things about that I really hate, all right? And this is my honest... I hate the uncomfortableness of who's going to pay the bill, and so I always just pay it.
I'm the same, 100%. I put my card down before I even get you to sit down.
I'd rather go to the bathroom and drop it off on the way and get it done rather than have that.
100%.
Okay, right. So we're on the same page there.
And also even the act of paying,
giving your credit card, someone coming over.
I find it so archaic. You want me to cut and sign with my blood. So it's actually archaic. One of the things, I'm not a big fan of Uber, but one of the things I love is I can walk out of the Uber service without doing anything.
Yeah.
And it's billed to me, right? And I think I want to be able to walk in and out of a restaurant, and the restaurant should know, if I give them permission, should know who I am, right? What I like, and they should have a record of all those things. And, welcome back, Mr. Ohan. I still believe in these sort of old school hospitality ideas. I want to be acknowledged as a customer, and I want to be, and I don't, the act of paying is so archaic to me. Yeah. It's like today, we still sign checks and things like that. But these are these are things that we take for granted. But there's actually there's no need for it anymore. Mm-hmm. And so I think a lot of industries have gone away from that. So I think all that stuff's going to go away, and I think your phone is going to be your passport for everything that you do, and the technology will fade to the background. And
it's fascinating when you think about what tech's doing. I find the insurance industry, the medical insurance industry, fascinating because when you consider the premium is down to the health and wellness of the individuals,
which they know nothing about and have no history about.
That's right. So how do you measure it?
I was having this conversation the other day with somebody, and it's just like Apple. Apple Health is actually the most fascinating thing in the world because today we walk into a doctor and they said, well, when I'm not feeling well. Well, when did this start? I don't know. A couple of weeks. And you start. It's almost it's ridiculous the conversation you have with your doctor.
Yeah.
What did you feel? I don't know. It was a bit of a and it's like but you have no data. You have no understanding, no history, and you're starting from scratch, and I'm 49 years old, and they're starting from today, right?
Yeah.
I mean, where's, but today, my heart data, why isn't all that data available, in my...
That's what I think, it's already happening in Scandinavia. You can't get medical insurance with some companies unless you have the chip inserted in you.
Wow, yeah. Well,
so every employee within the company has to have the chip, and it either goes here or somewhere around here, and it goes in there, and then it measures everything. Yeah. And so that the health insurance company then can know for all of their premiums.
And it's preventative, right? And
it's beneficial to the employer as well. Because, the key man risk if someone's got high blood pressure and all that kind of stuff. And so, but to see where that's going, how fascinating that is.
But again, it's so archaic still. I mean, this technology has existed for 2 decades probably to be able to do this, right? And in some form or another, and we're still not there.
Yeah, we're still not there. When you look at the whole entrepreneurial space, I've said that 1,000 times on not 1,000 podcasts. I've only done 50, 60 of them, but I often have this word entrepreneur that's bandied around, and you and I are precisely the same age. And so I was with my friend Maha the other day, and she was 50 last month. So we're all in that kind of age group. And that word never existed, entrepreneur. What did that mean? I don't even know if anybody ever said that when I was in my early 20s.
It would have sounded very pretentious.
Is that a French bloke?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Entree, who's he? And so it was just like small business people or sole traders, we were called in the UK, and had his own business.
And it wasn't really admired. It was almost
it was that was a struggle. That was a struggle. Yeah. That was kind of like,
why are you doing that?
Man, you're a contractor. Yeah. And there were obviously people that made it and people that didn't, but there's no glamour around it. But you're a successful entrepreneur. You also described yourself as an entrepreneur that started later in life. Okay, I'll call you a middle-aged entrepreneur for the sake that we're probably both there. And when I look at that word, I find myself, as I've got 2 daughters, 17 and 20, really kind of like protective around them not wanting to think that's cool.
Yeah.
And I know it's hard to get young people to agree with older people, but I just don't think it's cool, because I don't think an entrepreneur's life is an awful lot of fun. You spoke earlier about your wife having to endure and support. Yeah. You went from corporate America, or corporate corporate Canada, and salary every month, hit your bank account, bonus once a year, I'm sure, hit your bank account, medical insurance paid, flights on a business trip paid, hotel booking, PA, all that kind of stuff, all taken for granted, okay? All you had to do was to turn up in your suit, yeah. Okay, and everything else was taken care of, or not everything, but lots. Yeah. And to go from that and then to go into this world of risk and danger.
Excuse me, yeah.
Because that's what it is, isn't it? It's risk, it's danger, it's failure, yeah. It's pain, it's loneliness, it's heartache, and for some, okay, all of that's worth it.
Yeah.
But for most, all of that isn't.
I always compare entrepreneurism to sort of jumping out of a plane, because it's sort of one of those things that you're very scared about. There's no reason to do it. There's no rational reason to do it, right? And the fear is all, as you lead up to that moment, and I've done this once in my life, and I remember feeling very, very uncomfortable, as we were sort of ascending, but I remember that moment when I left the plane, where everything just, the fear went away, and it became the excitement of it took over, and the joy of it took over, and it was an instantaneous transition, and because the decision was already made, you couldn't get back in the
about
plane.
It, yeah.
And I think that that entrepreneurial moment is a bit like that. That's how it was for me. It was just, once you're out, there's this wonderment, and you can never put that back in the bottle. And so, but what comes with that is, and it's that wonderment that I think drives me. So what's possible? It's about creating something from nothing. That's the exciting part. But it is a day in, day out, 24-hour a day, 7-day a week, mind seizure. Because there's so much to sustain that. What's interesting is I'm driven by what's possible, right? Whereas I think if you work in a corporation, and I've worked in corporations, it's not about what's possible, it's about what's expected of you, right? And those are two different things, right? But when you're driven by what's possible, there's no bound to that. You're limited by your brain. And so your energy gets, and it requires an incredible amount of energy. If you see something's possible, it requires an incredible amount of energy to get there. And it's consuming, and it affects the people around you. It affects your life. And it's to the young people that want to be out there. I mean, people sometimes ask, what's the key to entrepreneurship? I think it's persistence. Mm-hmm. Right? How do you just keep going? Because there's great times and there's bad times. And as I've done this for a while, it's never as good as it feels, and it's never as bad as it seems, right? And and it's usually somewhere in between, and you develop this. But you have these massive highs and lows, and I think that's why, like for my partner, my wife, right? It's so, because she has to watch me and manage me or deal with me as I go through these highs and lows. The problem I have is that I'm addicted to these highs and lows. So as much as you don't like when things aren't going the way you'd like, it actually drives you further, and it gives me that. It's almost like an addiction. It's like an adrenaline addiction.
Yeah, but it's based around your personality type. In most cases, because I
had a very stable job, and I had when I left, my wife. She looked at me. I used to wake up every morning, and it was this constant. So it was the deterioration in sort of well-being, to the point where I woke up one morning, and this is while I was still with JLL, and they were a great company, and I had a great job, and I had the great everything, right? But it was funny, and so in my mind I'm thinking, you got everything, you got everything. Everyone's jealous of you. Everybody wants what you had. But I woke up every morning, and it was just deteriorating in my own mind. And I remember I got up one morning, and I was a bit emotional, and my wife looked at me. She said, "What's wrong?" And I said, "I don't want to go to work." And she said, well, "Why not?" I said, "I hate it. It's not the company. I don't want to be clear. It's not the company. I just hate the corporate. It's just not. It's destroying me inside. Mm-hmm. And she said, "Quit." So I quit.
So it's interesting you say that. My journey's different. I was the essentially for many years the number 2, and before that the number 3 in a business that was growing quite dramatically. And being the number 2 or number 3 was a place that I was able to excel, because there were some big decisions that I didn't have to make.
Yeah, the crown's heavy when you...
Yeah. And so when I then left all of that and then I set my businesses all up, I found that being an entrepreneur or being a business owner, whatever you want to bloody call it, I found it really lonely.
Actually, it's funny. My father, who's an academic his whole life, he said to me the day he said, he said, I don't know how he probably read it, but he said being an entrepreneur is one of the loneliest places you can be, and it is. Yeah.
It's and
what I find is that it's at night. When I'm going to bed, that's when you're alone with your thoughts, and that's when I feel the most alone, because that's when you can sort of percolate, what's happened during the course of the day and what you have to do tomorrow, and that's when I find that, and I don't sleep very well, and that's my nature anyway. But
me too. 4.5 hours a night.
Yeah, I get up at I need 8, but I get up at 3-4 in the morning most days, and I like that, but it's at night that I have a hard time. That's when it feels the loneliest, because when you're with people during the day and you're activated, you're excited, that keeps you through. But it's at night.
You're responsible for so many other people's lives,
right,
aren't you? Yeah. That's a heavy burden to wear, and sometimes other people can't see some of the potential challenges that you're dealing with, and so they're skipping.
And it's not their job to do that, and you can't share that with them. And you could, but there's no point in it.
Yeah,
there's no value in sharing that with them.
Yeah,
you're in some ways you're their unspoken guardian, right? And that's your burden to bear.
It is. I think that people just need, like with all of these things, I think they need to really, really think. There was this talk when I was younger that you should never go into partnership with someone. Partnership's always dangerous. It won't work out. Well, there's plenty of partnerships that have worked out, as many as there have that haven't worked out. So I think it's a way too easily mentioned. But sometimes being an entrepreneur that's part of a team, where each one of the 3, 4, 5 of you have your role and responsibilities, and maybe you're not equal shareholders, but you're all shareholders in that way. Gives you a bit more balance than doing it, and a lot of people don't have all the skills they need to be successful. Yeah. And so then what they do is they start thinking about how much money it's going to cost to get the other skills on board. Then they just give that up and make a bad job of doing it themselves.
Yeah.
Fair?
Yeah.
But finding people around you that genuinely have talent in areas that you don't, that can bring something that you can't, and respecting that and allowing them to lead in that area, I think just would make the journey for so many more people.
One of the most important skills is to know what you're not good at. Because then you can fill those gaps, right? If you know what you're not good at, and like you said, you can try. We can all do an average to poor job of everything, right? More or less. But the things that you're not good at. There's some things you have to learn the hard way that are yours and yours alone to bear. But for good or for bad. But there's other things that people are just so much better than you at, and it's knowing that and appreciating it and respecting that talent and what that adds to the company and to what you're doing. That's super important.
If you had to take someone on in a senior position in your business and you had the choice between the young, naive, highly driven individual, okay, and the guy that was maybe a bit older, not old, but a bit older, but had failed a couple of times and been through that hurt and pain, if you had to choose, everything else being equal, do you think you'd lean into the guy that might have been through a bit of pain, or you'd go for the young naive?
I'd go for the young, because it's a very apropos, because we're actually going through this transition in our company as well. The transition, but we've made some of those decisions in the last while about where we want to be as a company, and I think what I find is that, so I've made some pretty important decisions in the last little while, really around, and the decision came down to ethos, and so if that seasoned individual, if they share the ethos wholly and truly, then I would choose that person. But if they don't, if they don't have that, because the culture and the ethos of the company, I think is, for me, that trumps everything. And we've hired a bunch of 30-somethings, young 30s, late 20s people in the last little while, and they're all amazing. that we gel well together. My job, I start to feel a bit old because I'm the guy that kind of, that knows a few things. And, but my job is to help
You knew a guy like you once, didn't you?
Yeah. It didn't seem very long ago. But what I find is that my job is to give them vision and opportunity and to support them in what they're doing, but then let them just knock it out of the park, right? And, and I would rather do that than try and, you can't train that in somebody, even if you can't train ethos or culture. It's hard to do.
I think you're right.
So our culture today as a company is, I think I love working with our team. Like, our team is so much fun. And we are a team. I'm there to serve them. We operate very collaboratively, and it's about tasks and how we do things, and we're very transparent, very open, and it's a nice environment. And it's and we just do stupid. The question what I love is the questions that we ask isn't why should we do it? It's why shouldn't we do it? And that's a fun place to be, right? And that's for the youth, right? There's 100 reasons, especially as you get older, not to do something. But if you can ask the question, why shouldn't we do this, right? And because maybe it takes more effort, maybe it won't work. All right, let's try it. Tell
me about some of the mistakes you made, in the things that you regret doing along the way, because you would have made a ton of mistakes. But what ones stand out for you that are proper howlers that you should have known better?
So I'm gonna give you the honest answer. The honest answer is that I actually never feel that I've made mistakes, and that's not because I haven't made mistakes. I've made decisions that didn't work out. So I don't know. Your audience are probably going, that's probably a pretty thin distinction, but no, because I don't feel that. Like, I always feel like there were mistakes. There's no question I've made mistakes, but I always feel that it's part of the journey. And I have this theory that you should never make any decision that could have a material impact on what you're doing. You put that decision off until you feel, as long as you can, until you feel that you have the answer. All the other things, let's have a crack at it and see, because, let's make the best decision at the time, because, as an entrepreneur, you make, 100 decisions, an hour sometimes, right? So, but you can't be hung up on a lot of these things. I'm trying to think, I never look back on anything as a mistake. I look at it as a learning, and I genuinely can't think of an example of something where I thought, well, that was really stupid.
Well, how long have you had the Freedom Pizza?
Freedom Pizza about 5 years, but I've been doing food and beverage for about 10 years. Yeah.
Okay, but Freedom Pizza is 5 years old. So let's say you had Freedom Pizza today, and it was day one, or you're going back 5 years, and we're starting again. And with all that you know now, what kind of fundamentals would you do differently, or would you not?
I wouldn't. I don't think there's. I don't think we could have done anything. There's nothing that there's nothing I regret. There's nothing. I feel like we're just on a path. We're on a journey, and and I think having done this now for a decade or so, it kind of goes like this, and I don't see a straight line. And I think sometimes especially when you look at the tech industry, there's this kind of it's not a straight line. It's like I'm skeptical of a lot of those business models and the success or failure of them, and we're starting to see some of the outfall from those things, with WeWork and those types of companies that just shot to the moon. Probably the biggest regret is should we have grown faster? Mm-hmm. But I'm not sure about that either.
Interesting.
I'm not sure about had we tried to grow faster, we might have been less.
Did you raise money?
No.
So you bootstrapped it yourself.
Yeah.
And so bootstrapping that business yourself. Okay, so that's what I've done with my companies.
Yeah.
It's all come out of my savings.
Yeah.
And
that's commitment.
Yeah. I'm prepared to put it all on the line. I'm the one taking, like you, we're the ones that are taking massive risk because we're putting essentially our house on
Everybody else can go find another job.
Yeah. So it comes back to, for me, it comes back to that loneliness, the people not acknowledging what you're doing either.
Yeah.
It's like, you don't get it?
Yeah,
what do you mean you don't get it? For me, it's like, it's like, you have no idea.
So I've offered people equity. So I've offered people equity before in the business, earned equity. And what I found is, this is a mistake that I've made. Is what I found is that if you don't ask the individual to put money in their hand in their pocket for something, to earn that equity, it's meaningless to them because they didn't have to give up anything to get it. Right, they still got their salary, right? So, and then there was equity incentive. It's not meaningful to them, and I think it's just human nature. I've just seen that a couple of times. Mm-hmm. And if you if you didn't put up one penny of your own, if you didn't risk one thing of your own, right, then that you wouldn't have if it didn't go well.
So how do you do that then with equity now? Then what approach would you have rather than
I do equity matching.
Because in my business we have an ESOP, and there are 5 KPIs attached around anybody getting anything. And so if they don't achieve the KPIs, they don't get them. It's the end of that discussion.
For me, I right now I'm averse to equity. That's not so. One way to deal with it is I'll equity match. You put in X, or I'll give you a loan. Right? I'll equity match you against money you actually put at risk.
Okay.
Because I think then you're paying your way in, right? Mm-hmm. Or maybe part of their compensation becomes part of their equity purchase, which is their choice to do.
A deduction from their compensation to buy an equity. Yeah.
The only other thing is that I have now is on exit I would structure things that on exit that there would be compensation. They'd have to be there and meet certain criteria. But I've had bad experiences with equity that's unearned equity, unrisked.
You're right.
Equity, yeah.
People devalue it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for me, the whole reason for giving them was that they valued that, and
I saw it as a great amount of value because I put my hand in my pocket to pay for it.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Same as me. I remember when I first owned shares in a company, whatever the shareholding was, it was tiny, and my dividend for the year was £132.
Yeah.
Now hold on, this is 90s, so 94 maybe. No, maybe 95. I was unrecruitable from that moment onwards because I
was a shareholder.
Yeah. And in my mind, because I was a shareholder, it didn't matter who approached me, it didn't matter what the deal was, I wasn't going anywhere. Yeah. All for £132 worth of dividend a year. So clearly, for some people, it worked. Yeah. So it was everything. Yeah. It meant everything. But
I think people are still I think the tech industry's ruined a lot of people because they've been throwing this stuff at their employees, and it's all predicated on exiting at $100 billion. Right, and if you don't, look at the fallout that's happening now, in with all the tech companies that, people are and their employees are probably getting paid very well. I'm sure they're getting paid very well, but their whole thing is, they think that 80% of their compensation is going to be on this exit, right? That they're going to have at $100 billion. That's sort of, that's why they're there. So when that doesn't happen, how do you retain them after that, right?
I was in Amsterdam before I was here, and in 1999, the end of 99, I moved there, and we had the tech bubble there, and Amsterdam was the home of a lot of American companies that were based in Europe, and for tax reasons, and so lots of telecoms companies providing lots of digital services, and receptionists and secretaries were all millionaires on paper, and I think it stems from that time when you work for a company. Well, what do I need your help for? I'm a millionaire. Yeah, right. It was almost that nonchalance about it, and to see those same people a couple of years later earning 2,500 euros a month, and that's actually what they were earning, and no longer they were millionaires. Their mindset had shifted. Obviously, they went through disappointment, and it's been since then, hasn't it? But there are so many people out there that are involved in companies from an equity perspective, involved in companies that never go anywhere as well.
Yeah, and I think we're seeing that. I just look at the big tech companies, and a lot of people, and you're actually creating a very strange reality for your own employees if you set. You're basically setting up everything based on a win, right? And business, as you and I know, isn't always a win, right? And there goes through ups and downs. And if people haven't given anything up, they're easily going to give up what or devalue, what you're offering them on the upside if the business isn't in a downturn, in a down cycle, in a recession. So like if all they care about is that, and the path to that typically is this, and eventually you get there, then you're creating a very possibly unstable situation for the company, right, from an employment perspective, because now everybody's pissed off.
Yeah.
We had a recession. What are you going to do, right? Something happened. What are you going to do? But now all the things they thought they had or they were worth is now in question.
Gone, demotivated, now disloyal, now thinking
why am I working for this company now, right? And I was here for that. But you're also there for the salary and the benefits and all the other things. Right?
Oh yeah, right. That's why I expected that. Yeah, I remember. That's a horrible place to be in as a business owner, isn't it?
It is, but I think you're really like when you structure your setup. That's why I'm a bit sort of gun shy about the whole thing, because if you're really structuring yourself for potential failure, and and if you're when a business goes through cycles, and most businesses go through cycles, if people aren't prepared to, you and I, if you own the business, you trot on and you carry, and you put your head down and because there's going to be a brighter day, but your employees may not have that horizon, right?
I agree. Tell me, if I was going to be an entrepreneur starting out, and I had a great idea, and I'd written an epic business plan, and
have you ever seen a business plan that's failed? That where they said that it wouldn't work, or a feasibility study?
I've never seen an epic business plan ever become an epic business. Yeah. But you kind of you determined what advice would you give me if I was that young professional, maybe in my early 30s?
I'm trying to convince you not to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's really.
And if you still wanted to do it after that, I'd say go for it.
That's really interesting. Try and turn people away from it. And when you look at entrepreneurs out there that you admire for the work that they do, who do you hold up on a pedestal and say, do you know what, that guy, that lady?
I look at some of I like the people that are changing the world. Okay. I like the people that have a greater mission and a greater idea of the way things should be done. It's pretty trite, but I look at somebody like Elon Musk, who just does these crazy, outlandish, but very clever. But he executes.
Oh yeah.
And what I find amazing is that I love the way the markets are. They just want to piss all over Tesla. They're fair weather friends. But he and the reality is the guy's changing the world. He's making a profit doing it, and he's doing, incredible, and his company, he's doing outlandishly futuristic things that are now, and he's changing entire industries and accelerating entire, and so I find that pretty amazing. He's doing it in the face of what everybody thinks is not possible or shouldn't be possible. He's challenging the establishment. They don't like it, and he's doing it anyway.
One of the things I like most about Elon Musk is when he sold PayPal, and he got his check, or however much it was, and he had to invest. He said that he had two choices. It was to go to either SpaceX or Tesla. Yeah. And if it all went to Tesla, they'll be okay. If it all went to SpaceX, that would be okay. But he couldn't support both of them. And he did. But then, he went and stepped on his mate's sofa, and then he moved into his office. That is a guy that's got balls of steel.
And that's as a little entrepreneur, when you see that, that he's playing at a level that's an ungodly level, and you can see the pain in him. Like if you look, I think probably some people see success. I see the pain in him. I see the toil, because he's got 5 companies doing 5 crazy things, right? And they're all under pressure, and I see the pain in him, but he does it anyway, and that's what I admire that.
It's really interesting sitting brainstorming and chatting with you about this kind of stuff, because to sit with someone who's virtually the same age as me, to be in fairly similar positions. You're in a How old were you when you left the corporate world?
I was, I guess, 39, 40.
Okay, so I was 42. Yeah. So that was interesting. That's really interesting. And then going into it to be kind of like, are you going to sell your business?
One day, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think you always have to set up your business for sale or to bring in investment. You can't, you can't exist in a bubble. We have lots of interesting opportunities, but I haven't found. For me, the culture of what we do is super important. And money, there's a lot of big money out there that wants to do, but I think they'll ruin the business. And even if they own it has to be. I want a partner that is like-minded, that understands our business and understands why we do things. Because I don't always do things. We're not. It's not all about money today. It's about creating value for the future. And I think money wants money today, and that time horizon differential is a problem. And it will manifest itself very quickly. So
do you have a price? If someone offered you an amount of money, is there an amount of money that you'd go?
Yes,
okay.
and the answer is no. I'm not going to tell you what it is.
No. I wouldn't.
No, of course I have a price.
I wouldn't dare ask.
I have a price,
unless you wanted to tell me that was.
No, I have a price, but it has nothing to do with lifestyle or anything like that. You know, like it was funny because I come from a very middle class background. Both my parents were teachers at the time. You know, and you know, I'd made it when I was 22. You know, like I had my corporate job, I had my sports car, I owned my own little house in my little apartment. You know, and I was like, this is the greatest thing ever, right? You know, and I thought, you know, but then I've got everything I need, right? And I felt very satisfied, you know, financially. You know, you can only drive one car, you can only live in one house, you know. So for me, money is more about freedom. It's about no pun intended, but it's about the I want to not worry about money, not because I want to buy a jet, but because I want to not worry about money, and I want, you know, so I don't like money. I don't like the idea of money, but I don't like not having it either.
We're going to end shortly, but I want to ask these last few questions. Do you, because we're the same age, do you have a different relationship with money than you did 20 years ago? Do things matter to you? Like when we were younger, a nice car mattered.
Yeah.
Certain clothes mattered.
Oh yeah, no. Look at me. I mean, I don't. Yeah.
Because I have no interest. I'm married to somebody that thinks I'm absolutely bonkers, but I absolutely have no interest. I'm just as happy in a pair of jeans and a pair of trainers. I don't need a label on my T-shirt. You know, I'm just. It doesn't matter. Does my phone work?
I think you just aged both of us, but no. But you know what the thing is, I had.
Does your wife dress you yet?
No, no. She just doesn't like to be seen with me. That's in most cases. No, but you know what? I think I have everything I want in my life, right? You know, like I don't need another car. I don't need another. You know, like I kind of have. You know, the things that interest me now are like if I want to go out and buy a guitar, you know, like I would start to play guitar with my son, right? You know, but it's not a formidable amount of money to, but I get more enjoyment out of things like that than having, you know, like I'm past, you know, the red car and all that kind of stuff, and you know, and I think it's great. It's fun, but it's fun to have I actually found it gave me more. It actually stressed me out more having more things, you know. So like when we saw, so what I sold my last company, you know, I went and bought the car I always wanted, and you know, did a few of those types. Nothing crazy, but you know, enough. And I remember waking up one morning and it was stressing me out. These
really?
Things like I was worried about the car getting scratched, you know, all these things, right? And all it's just stupid stuff like that. And I'm like, I never worried about that stuff before, you know, and so it became, you know, it became a burden. So, you know, I'm less worried about that stuff. I'm more interested in using money for freedom, for travel, for, you know, like we spend 2 months of the year, you know, in California, right? And you know, and I still work a little bit, but that's precious, you know, that's worth everything to me. I'd rather spend every penny we have, you know, having 2 months with the family when they're young, you know, where it's kind of uninterrupted and, you know, in a nice, pleasant environment. You know?
Okay, last question. 2020, new decade, new year, all this kind of stuff. Fancy things are being said at the moment, you know, as we head right towards the end of this. And when you look at your business in 2020, do you have you got sucked into the grand plans? What are we going to do for the next decade that's going to be amazing? Or are you kind of like on a path and you're just going to be more of the same?
We're on a path, but we're going to realize a lot of the work that we've been doing for the last 18 to 24 months. You know, so we'll have all of our brands up and running, and we are going to expand regionally and internationally. That's what's going to happen next year, but that's the path that we're on. We're not going to explode, but we're going to step foot in a meaningful way in other territories.
Ian Ohan, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been an absolute joy talking to you.
Thank you so much.
Right, so hopefully you enjoyed that episode with the awesome Ian Ohan. What a great entrepreneur he is, great ideas and strategies that he deploys. And also, those pearls of wisdom are just so valuable to all of us. Look, Ian plus many more there on the podcast. So if you want to see other episodes, all you've got to do is click over there. You can pick out other episodes that you want to watch. But if you want to subscribe and get every single podcast that I produce coming to you week in, week out, so that you don't miss a thing, click there right now. Go on, click there right now, and you'll get everything, the lot, and you won't miss a beat. Go on, I dare you to do it. Right there, right now. I'll see you soon.